Hey guys, Hello Bella here. In this video, I'm going to be going over some of the top mistakes that I see people make on the Merch by Amazon platform when doing their designs, when marketing their designs, and coming up with their titles and tags and things like that. So these aren't going to be in any particular order, but it's just kind of things that I see as I'm researching designs to compete with. A lot of the things that I see people doing wrong are just kind of like common mistakes. They're not something that couldn't be fixed. It's just more of like an ignorance type of thing. And you know, ignorance is not necessarily bad. It just means that we don't know. So in this video, I'm going to try to go over things that I see people do. And of course, I'm not one of those people who's going to say that I've never made mistakes. I've uploaded shirts with spelling errors. I've uploaded things that weren't centered correctly. And I'm going to kind of tell you a lot of what I've learned along the way. So the first thing that I see people do is that they pick really poor font choices. So they don't consider the target market and they don't consider the gender that they're designing for. They don't look at the fonts in terms of how big or how wide they are. If the shirt is a 4-letter word and you have a really skinny font, it's just not going to look right. For that, you would want to pick like a wider font and a bolder font. So that's something that I see people doing, as well as I see people doing a feminine font on a masculine shirt, a masculine font on a feminine shirt, and you know, it just doesn't mesh very well. One of the things about fonts is if you are doing a design that is really minimalist or it only has a couple different words, the font choice is actually really important. A lot of the people who are professional graphic designers spend a lot of money on fonts because they know that that can make or break a design. And for me personally, I have purchased probably around 10 different fonts that I felt like were worth it. A lot of the fonts that I purchased were only like $5 a piece, so it's one of those things that, you know, is not very expensive to invest in, and it kind of sets you apart from the competition, especially when, you know, they're not willing to purchase fonts. But in general, I just see a misuse of fonts in terms of design work. And, you know, especially think if you're designing something for a kid, you want to have sort of like a whimsical or a fun font. And if you're doing something for, you know, for instance, a veteran, you want to have more of those masculine, strong fonts. So just kind of consider your font choices when you are making a design. And one of the things that you can do is, you know, look at performing shirts that are doing well and kind of look at how they structure their fonts and how they do it. And that's one of the biggest design flaws that I see on shirts for competitors. And even to the point of like, they don't have the font like correctly paired with another font, because if you have two fonts, they kind of need to go together in a certain way that, you know, maybe it's a little bit difficult to describe, but they need to kind of mesh well with one another. They don't need to be too similar, because then it makes it look weird that you have these very similar fonts right next to each other. The next thing that I'm going to tell you is something that seems obvious, I guess, but I guess it's not for a lot of people, and that is I see a lot of spelling or grammatical errors. And sometimes a grammatical error can be, you know, the proper usage of certain words like to and there and it's and you know, apostrophes and possessive forms. And, you know, a lot of people I get don't have those grammatical skills in life, so why would it transfer over if they're doing design work? But I would just caution you to be very careful with your design work when you're making different things, because nothing's going to drive someone crazier if they are, you know, looking for a shirt, for instance, for a teacher, and there's a grammatical error in it. You know, it's just kind of like, that's a given that's not going to sell. And you know, a lot of people may wonder why their designs are not selling, especially if English is not your first language, because the English language literally makes no sense in a lot of the rules that we have. Like, it's just like you just have to know about it. So I understand the frustration there, especially if you're designing for your second language. But you know, just kind of pay attention to that and how you use the words, and whether you put the apostrophe in or different things like that, and even the spelling of words in general. You know, it only takes a quick Google search to look up the spelling of a word, especially if you're not sure. I mean, there are some words, like for instance, the word psychology, you probably, like, if you haven't ever spelled it multiple times, you don't really make the connection in your head of the way that it's spelled, because it doesn't sound anything like it's spelled. So just kind of take the extra couple of seconds to make sure that you have the correct grammar and the correct spelling in your designs. Okay, the next thing that I see people doing is that they choose the wrong color shirt for the design that they are making. So you might be tempted to click on like 5 or 8 or 10 different colors for your shirt, but it's really best to keep it as minimal as possible. 1, 2, maybe 3 different colors. And even then, my strategy is usually to go ahead and upload those to different designs or different slots. You know, one of the things that that really irks me is people who don't get that, okay, if you have white font or white design, it goes on a dark shirt like black or navy. If you have a black or navy design or black or gray design, it goes on a light colored shirt. So basically all you have to remember is dark on light, light on dark. Just like this stop sign here, you know, the font is white, the background is red. That's very like specific so that it can be seen. You don't want to be doing stuff that is too close in the colors, because what winds up happening is that when it gets printed, all of this gets lost in translation. The print quality is not going to be as high as the design quality on our phones or our laptops. So just kind of keep in mind that the right color shirt really needs to be part of the focus. And what we see when we type in that shirt is a thumbnail. And so if your thumbnail is not good, or your thumbnail is showing up as the worst color choice for the shirt, you know, it really alienates the customer, and it makes the customer not want to click on it. Personally, if I see things like that, I just don't even want to click on it, because I'm like, this person doesn't, you know, really know what's going with what. This is one thing that I wrote down, and it's like people who are not specific enough with what they're designing, like a cool mom shirt. Like, you can't just put cool mom shirt. I get that you want it to be a cool mom shirt, but like a better title would be like cool mom nurse, oncology nurse, or cool mom, you know, I don't know, pediatric nurse or pediatric surgeon. You want to make as many like references to something specific as possible. You can't just do one thing. And a lot of other merch YouTubers talk about this. You can't make cool cat taco shirt anymore. Like, it's just not going to work. There's too many people who are already flooding the market with that, and quite frankly, it's just going to be a waste of your time. So a lot of the mistakes that I see people making are people who are not going deep enough into something. Like, they're still only scratching the surface. Like, you need to dive as deep as possible, and even when you dive deep into something, you can still look for another way to like cross niche it. Like, for instance, we have Christmas coming up, so you can make a shirt for a mom that's a Christmas shirt who's also an oncology nurse, and then you have 3 different points of interest for someone that is going to pull them in. And that's the way that a lot of people run, you know, Facebook ads or Instagram ads. You might have gotten an ad on your scrolling in your feed that seems so specific that it couldn't have possibly been for anyone else but you. And you know, that's deliberate. That's done for a reason, because this is going to appeal to these people emotionally. Like, it's going to be super targeted, especially if they're shopping for gifts. You know, for instance, if someone goes on to Amazon and they type in gift for oncology nurse, you might be one of the people who can pop up. But if you don't have those things in your title, then you know that's not going to work. And one thing that you might do is just literally go to Google and type in the different types of specialties for nurses, and then just go down the line and kind of find some that are untapped markets. Or you might go into different positions, you know, with coding or with programming or things like that. Like, for instance, I don't know anything about that. Like, to me, that is another world, another language. And that's another thing that I have on my list is not understanding the niche that you're selling in, or not understanding the terminology or the phrases used is a big one that I see people doing. You know, you don't necessarily need to immerse yourself in the culture, but you do need to sort of understand the phrases and the reason behind them. Otherwise, when you're bringing shirts to that market, you're just not going to make any sense. And people who are shopping in that market are going to be turned off if they see something that is like sort of not really in line with their beliefs or what they're looking for. I don't really have a specific example of that, but for instance, you don't want to put you know, Republican colors on a shirt for Democrats, right? Like, that doesn't make sense. You don't want to put the elephant on it. You get what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to put things in one category that fit differently in another category. So not understanding that niche is a big way to turn people off from your design. So just do a little research. You can spend time in like Facebook groups. You can spend time on different websites. Like Reddit is a really good one for like people who are very specifically in a niche. Like, if you go to different subreddits, you can see like, okay, there's a subreddit for keto, there's a subreddit for weight loss, there's a subreddit for running, there's a subreddit for cooking or meal prep or whatever. So you can look at all of those different things and then find like words or phrases within that category. Just make sure that you're using them correctly. The next tip that I have that I see people doing is they don't invest in fonts and graphics that will help them sort of set themselves apart from the competition. And, you know, as you get further on in your merch career, you're going to have more money to play with, and you're going to realize that a lot of the people who have been doing this for a long time pay for graphics because it's a good way to set yourself apart from the competition. It's a good way to get on trends. Like, for example, if there's a shirt that says something about going to the gym and drinking wine, there's going to be probably 300 or 400 different ones that are just text. But if yours actually has the wine glass on it, or the weights on it, or a kettlebell or something, or a kettlebell and a wine glass, like, you're immediately gonna stand out to the customer in terms of their eyes are gonna go to the one with the picture on it. So I think it's really important to invest in that. There's a lot of websites where you can buy vectors, and you can buy different kinds of things. I know, for instance, I think I use PNG Tree. I just bought like a lifetime subscription to it, and now I use it like pretty much every time I go design. I'll pull some kind of graphic from it. The Hungry JPEG is one. There's Etsy. You can go get fonts off of Etsy, and you can get some commercial graphics off of Etsy. If you do Merch Informer, I think you get like 100 graphics a month, so that is another one. And it's just one of those things where, like, you have to kind of be willing to spend money on this eventually if you want to grow. It's just a lot easier. I can tell you, just from running several different businesses, one of the biggest mistakes I've made in running all my businesses is not investing in the tools that I needed sooner. Like, I would buy things, but I would wait a year or 2 years to buy it, and then it would make me super efficient with whatever I was doing. But then I was like, why did you not just buy this 2 years ago? Like, that was kind of just ridiculous. But the human brain does a lot of things that don't really make sense. Like, have you seen any of my ex-boyfriends? There's a lot of things that we do that just doesn't make sense, but they make sense to us at the time, or they make sense to us for what we are currently seeing. But do something to invest in your business at least once a month, or every 2 or 3 months, or every quarter. Buy something that nobody else has so you can set yourself apart from the competition. For me personally, like this month I bought like 3 different fonts. Like, I bought a Christmas font, I bought sort of a more masculine font, and I think I bought like a distressed font. And they were just cool fonts. I thought, nobody else is gonna have this. This is really cool. And it also kind of brings it back to the point where you get excited about designing again because you have something cool to work with. So I would suggest that you kind of take a look at like what you can improve on in terms of your systems, and then see what you can spend money on to get better at. And that's just my tip. Is I think that they're very slow to invest in themselves. Like, we're one to, we'll buy our clothes, or we'll buy food, or we'll buy alcohol, but we don't want to buy something to invest in our business. So that's just kind of something that I kind of picked up along the way, and this is relevant for any business that you're in. Make sure that you are investing in that business. Okay, this is the last mistake that I see people make, and this is not necessarily all of them, but these are just the things that I was thinking about the other day as I was designing. And I was honestly, not to throw shade at anyone, but I was just kind of going through a lot of the search results, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, to me, I was like, this seems obvious, but I guess it's not obvious. So a lot of the things that I was seeing were on this list. But the last thing is failing to come up with your own unique phrases. So I don't mean that you can be the first person to ever think of it in the whole entire world. Like, I hate when people are like, they stole my phrase. I'm like, they didn't steal your phrase. You stole the phrase from somewhere else, and then you brought it to Merch by Amazon Market, and then somebody else like copied your phrase that you got from somewhere else. So basically, I want to say that, like, okay, you can be the first one to come to market with a phrase. For instance, if you are, subscribed to another website and something starts becoming hot over there, why not be the first person to bring it over to the Merch by Amazon website? One of the things that you can do is take a phrase from another niche and bring it to a different niche, if that makes any sense. Like for Christmas trees, I think Let's Get Lit is like a whole phrase of like Christmas tree designs and Christmas light designs. Take Let's Get Lit and put it on, like, I don't know, a shirt for an electrician. Make it about a different career choice. That's just an example of taking something from one thing and then bringing it to another thing. And one thing that I see people do is they They think that, you know, I have to be the first person to think of something and this has to be a totally new revolutionary concept in the whole entire world. That's just not sustainable. We're just not going to be able to come up with things constantly. It's much, much easier to go into something that you want to go into. Like, say, for instance, if I want to go unfollow a certain subreddit and I'm already going to look at these every single day, right? So why don't I just follow those? And then when phrases pop up in those subreddits, I bring those phrases to Merch by Amazon Market. And people are going to copy you. Like, my bestseller right now, I was literally the first because I specifically remember typing in the phrase and being like, that's weird, there's nobody doing this. And I brought it over to market and then it started making sales, and then there's probably about 300 with the phrase now, and I was number one and I'm still on the first page of search results, so I still pretty much make the most sales. And I actually wound up putting up a bunch more designs, and so like literally like half of the page of first page results are my designs. So it's my own designs competing with my designs. So that's kind of one of the things I mean when I mean you need to be first to market. You don't want to be one of those people who is waiting until there's 300 search results for something, like for the Let's Get Lit Christmas tree thing. Like, honestly, that's just a lost cause. Like, it's a waste of your time. So focus on putting your time where it's going to be valuable and where it's going to be useful. That way you don't waste your time on designs, because the worst thing that we could possibly do with Merch by Amazon is not take full advantage of what we've been given. We've honestly gotten so much news in the last year or so. I mean, we got pop sockets, we got the phone cases, and now we're getting tote bags and throw pillows, and honestly there's no telling what we're going to get in the next couple of years. And I want to make this into something that is going to be a constant revenue stream for me personally. I know in the last 60 days I've made over $10,000 with Merch by Amazon, because I made around $7,000 in October, and November so far I think I'm at like $4,400. So that's like a really good chunk of change, right? Like, that's something that, you know, you want to put time and effort into. But hopefully these tips were useful to you. Again, not to throw shade, these are just some things that I see people doing that I think that we can all improve on, and these are things that I'm guilty of as well. Especially if I get into a hurry, I tend to do that. I want to get everything done as quickly as possible and efficiently as possible. But, you know, spending a little time on research is really, really useful. I think with Merch by Amazon, we are going to see a trend in, like, you're going to need to spend more time researching to see how to compete than to actually do the design, especially when it comes to the phrases and things. But every day there's a new event happening, a new political trend or a new social justice thing or something going on in the world. So there's never a shortage of things to make t-shirts about. It's just like, how can we make the best shirts and how can we be as efficient as possible? So anyways, I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you have any tips for us, that your own tips that you've learned on Merch by Amazon, just leave it in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys in the next video.